an ancient Egyptian colony in the Grand Canyon covered up? This is an image of a pyramid, but it's in Egypt. It's not in the Grand Canyon. But these are structures in the Grand Canyon that many believe could have been pyramids. And not only these, but other structures have been found that resemble, for example, ancient sphinxes. And there are those who claim that they have found Egyptian hieroglyphs and also things that look like Egyptian mummies, embalmed Egyptian mummies. So this is what was found as well, something that looks like a sphinx. We know that there's been a recent finding of the Giza plateau, and many think it's a second sphinx. It looks very worn, just like this one does. So, did the Smithsonian cover up an ancient Egyptian colony of the Grand Canyon? A mind-boggling discovery of an ancient Egyptian colony, according to a news article from all the way back in 1909. The answer is yes, some people believe. Is it possible that the ancient Egyptian civilization developed technology to travel across the planet? Well, we already know that the ancient Minoans of the ancient island of Crete in Greece had traveled and were trading all the way up to the British Isles. From there, they went to the Faroe Islands. From there, they went to Iceland. From there to Greenland. And then from Greenland to Labrador. And then they settled in the Great Lakes area. And they recently found that the DNA of the ancient Minoans was found in the DNA of the Native American Indians, especially the tribes around the Great Lakes. They also found that 500,000 tons of copper had been removed by the ancients from the ancient copper mines around the Great Lake area. So if you put down one and one together, you put the pieces of the puzzle together, you're saying, okay, the Native Americans have Minoan ancient DNA. How did they get the Minoan DNA into the Native Americans? Obviously, it's from the people traveling there. And then the copper was removed, a tremendous amount of copper removed. Why did they need the copper? They needed it because they had their armor, their shields, their weapons, their helmets, their breastplates, their shin guards, whatever, their chariots. And they were also trading. So it's not impossible to think that it could have been the ancient Egyptian civilizations that had reached there as well. Now, is it possible that ancient Egyptian civilization developed technology to travel across the planet? Well, definitely shipping. By having a ship, it would have been very nicely, very easily done if you go towards various areas, as we said. They were having trade all the way to Scotland, and from there they would go to Ireland, Faroe Islands, Iceland, Greenland, Labrador, and they were there. So, in recent years, more evidence has emerged which supports the idea that ancient civilizations like the Egyptians, the Chinese, and even possibly the Olmec achieved transoceanic voyages before written history suggests. While scientific responses to pre-Columbian transoceanic contact vary over time, most ideas which support this possibility have been treated with skepticism, since such an idea radically opposes what we're told about history. Of course, since most history books were written, a lot of things have been found in archaeology, confirming all this. For example, the Minoan DNA in the Native American Indians, and the fact that the 500,000 tons of copper had been removed, and they found ancient mining tools in there in those copper mines as well. The idea that there is or was an ancient colony in North America belonging to the ancient Egyptian civilization is something that, according to many, only occurs in Hollywood movies. But according to the front page of the article, the April 5th, 1909 article, the edition of the Arizona Gazette, a bizarre discovery was made in the marble region of the Grand Canyon that points towards an ancient Egyptian presence in North America thousands of years ago. And according to the newspaper, two alleged Smithsonian-funded archaeologists, Professor S.A. Jordan and G.E. Kincaid, made the fascinating discovery that, according to many, proves history is inaccurate, and the report was shrouded in mystery, and it read, quote, "Discoveries which almost conclusively prove that the race which inhabited this mysterious cavern, hewn in solid rock by human hands, was of Oriental origin, possibly from Egypt, tracing back to Ramses. If their theories are born out of the translation of the tablets engraved with hieroglyphs, the mystery of the prehistoric peoples of North America, their ancient arts, who they were and whence they came, will be solved." And I have to tell you, what other thing I remembered concerning the ancient Greeks and the Native Americans. I have to tell you now before I forget it. In a letter of 1851 or 59 by some professor of Maine, of a university in Maine, named Johnston, he wrote to the chiefs of the Indian tribes, and he wrote to them in ancient Greek. Obviously, the professor knew he was probably a Grecian, meaning that he knew ancient Greek. Why would he write to them in ancient Greek? I mean, obviously, the leaders and the chiefs of the Indian tribes didn't go to college to learn Greek. He wrote to them in Greek because that was their native language and their native alphabet. And he called them aderfiamu. He says that means my brothers. He called them my brothers in the letters. So why would he write to them in ancient Greek? In ancient Greek writing? Because that was their ancient writing, and they all knew it. All the chiefs knew that writing, and they knew the language. So that's one other thing that really confirms the fact that they had Greek ties. Let's remember that the ancient Egyptians spoke Greek. Okay. Now there's even theories that the first pyramids that were built in Egypt were built by Greeks. For example, they have the same names, like Thebes. Thebes is a 1-hour car drive north of Athens. That's where the city that the evangelist Luke was from, and even his tomb is there today. Thebes is an hour north of Greece, 1 hour car, about an hour and a half, but I do it in an hour. Maybe an hour, 10 minutes, whatever. They built Thebes in Egypt. And also Suez. Suez is the written backwards, meaning Zeus. Okay? Said is the opposite, written backward of Dias, meaning Zeus. Dias. Okay? So there's a lot of places there in Egypt that have Greek names. Memphis of Egypt. But anyway, going back to this article, Egypt and the Nile and Arizona and the Colorado will be linked by a historical chain running back to ages which staggers the wildest fantasy of fiction, end quote. The article notes that the mysterious set of caverns was located in an extremely remote part of the Grand Canyon, dangerous and nearly inaccessible. The alleged site is reportedly located 2 miles away from El Tovar Crystal Canyon. And according to the Arizona Gazette, the entrance to the main cavern was located some 1,500 feet below an abrupt cliff. However, people believed all of this is part of an elaborate hoax and that the discovery was never made. Furthermore, the Smithsonian Institute denied all claims indicating that no record of a so-called Kincaid or Professor Jordan exists in the Smithsonian Department of Anthropology. Moreover, the Smithsonian denies there is any evidence of artifacts gathered. In the book Suppressed Inventions by Jonathan Eisen, a spokesperson from the Smithsonian Institute denies any ancient Egyptian artifacts were found in the Grand Canyon. Quote, "Well, the first thing I can tell you before we go any further is that no Egyptian artifacts of any kind have ever been found in South or North America. Therefore, I can tell you that the Smithsonian Institute has never been involved in any such excavations," end quote. So was this just another hoax? Could we conclude that the entire story is just an elaborate newspaper hoax, as many indicate? Or is it possible that the Smithsonian Institute, which has been called out in the past for covering up history-changing discoveries, covered up the mind-boggling discovery. And reading through the book Suppressed Inventions, we found out fascinating details that give the story of an ancient Egyptian colony in North America an entirely new level. Quote, historian and linguist Carl Hart, editor of World Explorer, obtained a hiker's map of the Grand Canyon from a bookstore in Chicago. And poring over the map, we were amazed to see that much of the area of the north side of the canyon had Egyptian names. For example, the area around 94 Mile Creek and Trinity Creek had areas with names like Tower of Set, Tower of Ra, Horus Temple, Osiris Temple, and Isis Temple. In the Haunted Canyon area are such names as the Cheops Pyramid, the Buddha Cloister, Buddha Temple, Manu Temple, and Shiva Temple, end quote. Is this just a small, worthless coincidence, or are there more to the story, or is there more to the story than meets the eye? Interestingly, the area of the canyon where the Egyptian names are located is an area off limits. It's a forbidden zone. No one is allowed to enter it and explore it. The great question is, though, why? Why is it off limits? Is it because the mysterious vaults and ancient Egyptian artifacts are real and they are located there? And even today, the mysterious area of the canyon is a restricted zone off limits for hikers, explorers, and even park personnel. The story of the mysterious, quote, lost ancient Egyptian colony, end quote, in the Grand Canyon is filled with mystery. What if Professor Kincaid and his colleague Professor Jordan did exist and worked for the Smithsonian but under other names? Or is it possible that the story printed by the Arizona Gazette is an elaborate hoax, an attempt to increase sales for an unknown local newspaper? That's possible, isn't it? After all, only the Arizona Gazette wrote about the alleged discovery. So if something of this magnitude was real, wouldn't other papers have rushed and printed the magnificent story? While it's impossible to say for certain whether or not the caves exist, and someone actually recovered ancient Egyptian artifacts from the caves, we know that the ancient Egyptians were capable of a lot of things, and they could have had the ability to travel to the Americas. Evidence of that in an intriguing set of glyphs located in Australia, the Gosford glyphs. But in addition to the above, there are quite a few indicators which suggest the ancient Egyptians sailed around the planet and had the ability to perform large-scale oceanic voyages thousands of years ago. Another intriguing fact that points towards ancient Egyptians traveling to the Americas or vice versa are the mummified remains of Lady Henut Taui. The mummy, analyzed by German scientist Svetla Balabanova, contained traces of cocaine and nicotine, something that had never been found before. But why was the discovery a groundbreaking one? Well, cocaine and tobacco are only found in Americas in the distant past. So how did cocaine and tobacco get to into the body of the ancient Egyptian mummy? Obviously, tobacco and cocaine were shipped from the Americas to Egypt. Now, these plants were not exported until the 19th century recently, a fact that suggests that somehow ancient Egyptians could have traveled to the Americas 3,000 years ago. This is by Ancient Code. It's on Humans Are Free by Alexander Light. Please leave your comments. Tell me what you think. Thank you. If you'd like to join me on my Patreon account, you will hear content not covered by mainstream media. These riveting stories will be based on my research, and I will state my opinions and give my personal insight on diverse and controversial subjects and world events not covered by mainstream media, and not supported by YouTube guidelines. So whatever I have on my Patreon, most of those will not be on my YouTube channel. Please consider becoming a member today. More of the most significant and important videos will be on my Patreon channel. Your support helps me to continue my research and keeps this YouTube channel alive. and we depend on your support, your generous charity, because we help economically challenged families here in Athens, Greece, in Kapota, and we also help the young generation with university tuition and the community around our church. Thank you.